So last time we dwelled on the imperial Maheshwari, who has the nature of a calm wideness. But Mahakali is of another nature, not wideness but height, not wisdom but force and strength are her peculiar power. So not wideness but height, not wisdom but force and strength. Actually, these two, wideness and height together, Maheshwari brings an infinity of vastness, and Mahakali brings the height of our ambitions, the height of progress, the height that wants to surpass every goal and every target and every aspiration, the height that constantly wants to surpass itself. And also, this is not wisdom, but force and strength. And actually, wisdom comes to its full fruition and fertility only if it has force and strength. It's like you may have the most brilliant idea in the world. You may have the most magnificent idea in the world, but if it is not paired with a certain force, a certain strength to make it happen, a certain conviction of no matter what, a certain determination, then it remains an infertile idea. So wisdom is not enough. On the spiritual path also, wisdom and knowledge is not enough, though the path begins with wisdom and knowledge. That's the absolute foundation. But if we stay within the safe and comfortable bubble of wisdom, then we are not going to progress. So we also need a certain force and strength, a certain conviction, a certain determination, a certain no matter what attitude to progress. And this attitude truly comes from the Mother Mahakali. There is in her an overwhelming intensity, an overwhelming intensity. You know, these days, a lot of times we criticize, we associate pressure with stress, but actually pressure is good. When we are cooking, when we cook things at the right pressure, that is when things become beautiful. That is when food becomes tasty to eat. But it has to be the right kind of pressure, right? Actually, when you're giving your wholehearted 100% to things that you love, you experience the flow of intensity, what we refer to as the flow state. But when you are under pressure to give yourself to things that you don't like or love, that is when it becomes stress and anxiety. So the problem is not pressure or intensity, right? A lot of times, on the spiritual path, people are so burnt out from the corporate pressure that they become so weary of pressure. So they don't want any kind of a pressure in life any longer. But there's a true pressure, the pressure of the soul, the rapid accelerated growth. Something in you wants to experience that intensity, which is why we love to go to adventure parks, right? We love a certain intensity in life. But to be able to withhold that intensity, we must absolutely love what we are doing. Only then it becomes a pure sense of intensity of joy. Otherwise, it is merely stress and anxiety. So this is the mother in whom there is an overwhelming intensity. She wants us to progress, and she wants us to progress now. a mighty passion of force to achieve, a mighty passion of force to achieve. I remember in the Synthesis of Yoga, first chapter, Sri Aurobindo is describing all the world movements, that behind all the world movements, there has forever been the yoga of nature. There has forever been the hand of the mother that is pushing things towards progress. And then he writes that the force of the mother, she absolutely many times rushes into progress because she wants to achieve a unity in diversity on earth at the earliest possible. So this is the part of the mother that gives us an immensity of force that in some ways, cuts through all the bullshit and all the resistance and all the excuses and all the stories that we make and all the knots that we create in our lives. So, a mighty passion of force to achieve, a divine violence rushing to shatter every limit and obstacle. What a beautiful word. Last time we had, in Maheshwari, her punishments are also a grace. And here we have divine violence. Now, one important thing to note here is this is in no way for you to justify violence. I've also seen in the spiritual circles, many times somebody would get angry, normal anger, okay, frustrated, normal anger, and justify it nicely saying, oh, Mahakali manifesting through me, okay? So not like that. My mentor, Neil J, she used to say, only if you have mastered the impetus of love and harmony, only then you can even talk about something like divine violence, okay? Which means, even if somebody is throwing stones at you, right? Somebody is throwing stones at you, and you can genuinely from within give a divine smile to that person, that you must open any chapter to do with divine violence at a human level. Otherwise, my dear, you are yet to establish yourself in a basic fundamental equanimity. It's like imagine, the throwing stones of today's day and age is social media trolling. So imagine you're nicely being trolled on social media. You're being accused and spoken names left, right, and center. And this person, who's trolling you, you can really see the soul of that person, that soul that even he cannot see in himself. And you're able to smile at him or her looking at the inner child of that person. If you have attained that stage, then well, open to Mahakali in this particular fashion. If not, then let's not use, our little anger and our little, outbursts and we call it nicely, oh, it's Kali, it's Mahakali. Not like that, yeah. With me also, I was, even though I had left Oxford, I had left the pursuit of pursuing a PhD from Cambridge, still one part of me was hanging on to career. I have to make a career. I'm young. I have to make a career, right? And then, a whack came from life, something that I couldn't have imagined in my wildest dreams. I got an average mark in my thesis. Now it's okay. What is the big deal? You get an average mark, but it's a big deal for somebody who's been a topper all throughout life. Suddenly receiving like an average mark. And I really felt like, the divine closed all doors to an ordinary career. Because such a dip in my CV, how will I justify? And then I was like, forget about career. I will follow my calling. I always had it. I was already taking steps towards following my calling. But still, one part of me at the end of the day was scrolling through PhD options. And funnily, you know what I was doing? I was scrolling through, I'll do PhD in spirituality. And then one day, you know, somebody pointed out in Auroville to me, my dear, you want to do a PhD in spirituality for 5 years. Why don't you do spirituality for 5 years? Why do you have to do a PhD in spirituality? And it really struck me that she's right. You know, even after letting go and taking a risk, still some part of me was latching on. And then came a nice divine violence that now you see. So it's an absolute blessing in disguise. A divine violence rushing to shatter every limit and obstacle. All her divinity leaps out in a splendor of tempestuousness, of a tempestuous, stormy action. She is there for swiftness, for the immediately effective process, the rapid and direct stroke, the frontal assault that carries everything before it. So yes, this is the part of the Mother Divine that is absolutely in love with speed. It loves speed, it loves swiftness, it loves intensity. It's like, you know, she comes in your life like a storm and makes you do things that you never imagined that you are capable of. And only thing that she asks of us is to be receptive. That's the only thing that she asks of us. Actually, she's not scary or violent. She is the part of the mother that absolutely abolishes our ego in a second, in a moment. I'll give you an example. You know, before joining Auroville, I had, you know, lots of doubts. Will I get off from the world? I will not be able to make an impact into the world. Will I be into small, little, everyday conflicts of a little community? And will I be able to tap my full potential? Can I contribute in the way that I wanted to? And I had all kinds of, and the way I am, you know, articulating these doubts, I'm projecting it on Auroville. But Auroville has this problem, Auroville has that problem, everything like that. And I'm sitting and having dinner with Manoj. Now, that time, Manoj is a complete acquaintance, not even a friend. And, you know, he heard my entire story, and one would expect from him extreme calmness and quietude. And, you know, somebody would be like, it's okay. And, you know, that's how you expect, or at least I expected out of him. And he tells me, learn to surrender your ego. He looked into my eyes and he pretty much said that, you know, darling, you're acting out of ego, learn to surrender your ego. So that's the first thing that I remember that he said to me. And then, you know, the other thing that he said is that, you know, you are saying you want to contribute to Auroville, you want to serve. Then he asked me, you know, why is the entire story so much about you? Why are you so important in the story? And then it really hit me that I was weaving my spiritual path and journey around me and not the divine and not Auroville and not Mother and Sri Aurobindo. And this was the first person everybody until that point in time used to really admire and say, oh, so wonderful, so wonderful. And here he hits my ego like anything. Of course, my first reaction of the ego was, no, I'm not like that. I'm sincere. You should trust my sincerity. You're doubting my sincerity and all the rest of it. Yeah. But once I really went back, I was really so grateful that somebody really spoke to me like this. So yes, for the immediately effective process, he could have given me a little bit of a padding, but that would not have had an immediate, you know, result. So to even receive something like this, many times, you know, people say that, oh, but Manoj never tells us something like that. but also that part of credit I can take. I could have received it. Can you receive something like that? If somebody tells you, it's like one time one of my mentors, he told me I'm pompous. And that broke my ego like anything. For 4 months, I was dwelling on it, mulling over it. No, he's not trusting my sincerity and this or that. But if we can really take it, then it can be given. Okay, with that, the next line. Terrible is her face to the Asura, dangerous and ruthless her mood against the haters of the divine, for she is the warrior of the worlds. Many times we see a very terrible face of Mahakali, right? We see her tongue out, some of you mentioned. She's very scary. But she is very scary for the Asura, not for you and I. For the seeker who's yearning to progress. Actually, she is the most loving form of the Mother Divine. It's like, remember last class, I shared with you a couple of examples of mother saying no to a seeker to go and watch a football match. That no would have hurt that seeker, right? That, how can mother ask me not to go? But she can ask him not to go because she sees a possibility of progress in him, because there is an aspiration of progress in him. That is why she can tell him that. So terrible is a face to the Asura, not, my dear, to you and I, right? For she is the warrior of the worlds who never shrinks from the battle. So this is also, by the way, the part of us when mother called her children like you and I. In the beginning, there's a little booklet of the mother called An Ideal Child. I used to see that booklet, but I never really cared to read that booklet because I was like, it's not my children. I am adult. Why do I need to read a booklet like that? And then I went to this gathering of Sourcing Our Oneness, where there were, seekers and sadhaks of Mother and Sri Aurobindo of all age groups. And the first thing that they do, they all sit together and they're reading the ideal child as if they are the child. And that's the first time I realized that, oh, I am the child. I thought I am not the child. I am an adult, right? And in that booklet of the ideal child, she says the ideal child is a hero warrior. A hero warrior, which is a mother's warrior, right? You have seen on Dashera, there are little children roaming around with a little talwar and a gadha and a little, trishul and a little, what is it called? Bow and arrow, right? Little children playing with that. And I read that booklet where she's calling her children not to just be fragile and sensitive in the name of spirituality, to be the hero warriors. The reason why we need to be the hero warriors, because as seekers and sadhaks of integral yoga, we need to conquer the adverse forces, including the force of money, including the force of power. So if we need to conquer these forces that are ordinarily in the hands of asuras, we cannot be these fragile little egos, naive and easy to manipulate. We need to have the nerves of steel, right? So it really, at that point in time, I could see that I am mother's hero warrior, and I could see my little inner child as a little Divyanshi with a little gadha and a little bow and arrow. So really, never shrink from the battle to be mother's hero warriors. She wants the most sincere people to develop the most amount of power. Usually what happens is individuals who have sincerity and purity, they let go of the world. They are into sannyas, right? And on the other hand, the ones who take charge of the major institutions of business or politics, tend to be okay with being inauthentic, okay with not being pure, okay with cheating, okay with white lies. And thus the world cannot transform. But we are called into the Kurukshetra, we are called into the battle. So she gives us that power that does not want to shrink away from the battle. She's the one who makes us such that we enjoy the battle of life. If we start enjoying the battle of life, there is nothing like good time or bad time. It's like for a soldier in one of the movies about the Kargil war that I was watching. The soldier, when he was given this opportunity to fight in the war, he felt so privileged the fact that I can fight in a war. Even though fighting in a war means that the likelihood of dying has increased so much more, but he was just so happy that I have an opportunity to fight, right? So when we grow through life as mothers, hero, warriors, there is nothing like good time or bad time. Bad time just means challenging times for us to develop the inner strength and to come out shining like diamond under the pressure. It's carbon under pressure is what diamond really is, right? So just like a diamond is a warrior, one comes out. So this is the mother intolerant of imperfections. She deals roughly with all in man that is unwilling, and she's severe to all that is obstinately ignorant and obscure. Her wrath is immediate and dire against treachery, betrayal, and falsehood and malignity. Ill will is smitten at once by her scourge. This really reminds me, just a few months back, I was, with Tara Didi. And there's somebody who works very closely with Tara Didi, right? And we were sharing this one experience that, so Tara Didi is known to be a very determined, courageous leader. And she wants something, she wants it perfect, and she wants it now. And she's somebody who's contributed, such a wealth towards the entire community of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. More than half of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo centers that we see across India, there has been a push from her towards developing those centers, and she's a massive mobilizer and extremely dynamic lady who's consecrated her entire lifetime at the feet of the divine's work. So, but she is known to be very, very strict. She's also into sports, and people are a little scared of talking to her. So this one lady, who's a very sensitive, harmonious lady, a very heartful lady, happens to be very closely working with Tara Didi. So she was sharing that, throughout her lifetime, she's been asked, how is it working with Tara Didi? You must be getting scolded left, right, and center. No, how do you reconcile at the end of the day? And she said this one thing that, Tara Didi never scolds me. She always scolds my work. And I found it to be so heartwarming that somebody can receive feedback in this kind of a way, right? That she never scolds me as a person, as an individual. She always scolds my work. Indifference, negligence, sloth in the divine work, she cannot bear, and she smites awake at once with sharp pain if need be, the untimely slumberer and the loiterer. Indifference, negligence, sloth in the divine work, she cannot bear, and she smites awake at once with sharp pain if need be, the untimely slumberer, slumberer as in the one who's sleeping, loiterer as in the one who's been loitering through life. This reminds me of a couple of examples. Every time in life, in spite of having a strong aspiration, somehow if my surface nature has been loitering meaning it's stagnant and it's okay and it's going slow, and are okay with being comfortable with lack of progress in certain parts of your being, and chalta hai. Attitude, kaisa hai? Chalta hai, right? I have really seen, as the aspiration inside of me increases, there comes like this sharp pain of the Mother Divine that absolutely awakens me once more to that aspiration with which I began the journey. Once I met with this old Aurovillian, and she said this one thing to me that immediately kind of awakened me. It's like somebody did like this to me. And she said that, when I started my journey, Divyanshi, of yoga, such a burning yearning inside of me. There was such an aspiration inside of me. And 30 years later, that aspiration is not burning so high. And suddenly, it waked me up because I was like, oh, but 30 years down the line, there should be a higher aspiration, right? How can it get dulled down? That is when I realized that indeed, aspiration can get dulled down if you don't take care of keeping that aspiration, keeping that fire inside of you alive. That really struck me at that point in time. And I was like, it's very, very important to constantly keep refiring, constantly keep coming back to this aspiration, constantly to keep pushing yourself out of the comfort zone and not waiting for the hand of the nature to push you out of the comfort zone, to constantly never growing complacent. These are the two movements in nature. Often they don't come together. One is contentment. The problem with contentment is if we become content, no, we become too complacent with life. Chalta hai, ho raha hai. Mother is doing things, it's okay. In India, too, we have the concept of rebirth also. It's not like there's one lifetime. We'll come back, we'll achieve in another lifetime. It becomes like that. Chalta hai. And an even trickier way in which it comes is everything that is happening in life. Oh, mother is doing it. And you begin to blame your lack of aspiration and progress and courage on poor mother. Right? Ke, haan, mother did it. So maybe it is not meant to happen. That is why I did not push myself out of the comfort zone. But that is one movement. The other movement is progress. The problem often with progress is one becomes very ambitious. And the moment one's ambition, particularly coming from the ego, when that is not fulfilled, then one is frustrated. There's a restlessness in being, oh, I'm not able to achieve, so I cannot rest. The ideal in integral yoga is a synthesis of the opposites. So, how does it feel like to be absolutely in contentment with the pace of life, with the rhythm of life, and yet have the fire inside of you that is wanting a rapid, accelerated progress? It's like there's a chapter in Synthesis of Yoga called the Four Aids. The fourth aid is the aid of time. And when Sri Aurobindo talks about time, he says as a practitioner of integral yoga, usually people suffer time. People also suffer life, but they suffer time. It's almost like I have 100 things to do and time is not enough. Time is not enough. I have very little time and I'm running from one thing to the other. Or people complain about the timing in life. I'm going through a difficult time in life. Nothing is in my favor. And then there is a Shani Mahadasha also going on. So I'm constantly in battle with time. And Sri Aurobindo says that the seeker of integral yoga will have two things. One is an absolute seatedness into timelessness, right? In an absolute timelessness from which comes a complete contentment, which is what we spoke about in the last class, which is what Maheshwari brings. She brings a calm wideness, right? But at the same time, to possess that swiftness of Mahakali that wants to rush, that wants to hurry, that wants to have an accelerated progress. So with that, we have the next one. The impulses that are swift and straight and frank. Notice the word frank and straightforward. The movements that are unreserved and absolute. The aspiration that mounts in flame are the motion of Mahakali. The impulses that are swift and straight and frank, the movements that are unreserved and absolute, the aspiration that mounts in flame are the motion of Mahakali. It's like actions speak louder than words. Many times you would come across people and they would go on and on about their devotion and their aspiration. And then you would come across people who speak very little, but in their action, they will end up taking such steps, which is absolutely full of courage, something that puts them right on the path of the divine. And that frankness, that bluntness, that lack of convolution, that lack of fooling oneself, this is also the mother because of whom we don't fool ourselves. When this mother is present in our hearts, when we invoke this part of the mother, that is when we stop fooling ourselves. Before we fool the world, we actually deceive ourselves. We fool ourselves. We tell, no, I'm not like that. No, things are not like that. So this is the part which really, really preserves your sincerity, because it does not allow you to get into self-deception. Her spirit is tameless, her vision and will are high and far-reaching like the flight of an eagle. Her feet are rapid on the upward way, and her hands are outstretched to strike and succor. Her spirit is tameless. She is wild. Her vision and will are high. Just like the Arjuna could see nothing but the eye that he has to hit, she sees nothing but the vision divine. She is far-reaching, like the flight of an eagle. She wants to make the progress. She wants you to make the progress now, and she wants you to go towards the very highest possibility. Her feet are rapid. She's fast. She has speed. She's ever moving on an upward curve. Her hands are outstretched to strike and succor. She is ready to abolish the ego as one moves towards the highest possibility of what one can. And it's a little bit of a pity. We can appreciate the hand of the grace and the Mother Divine when she's doing puchu puchu, lulu lulu to us, right? But the moment the mother becomes a little strict, that is when we start cribbing and complaining about the mother. We see the same pattern even with our biological mother. Till the time the biological mother is all like puchu puchu, giving you cold coffee before you go to sleep, nurturing you, giving you all kinds of pamperings, she's good. But the moment for your benefit, she will do something that you don't like, right? You will cry and crib and you will tell she's not a good mother, right? That's the same thing that we do with the Mother Divine, with the universal hand of the Mother as well. Till the time, we are experiencing progress in a nice and sweet manner. Everybody is complimenting us. We are going through a journey of life in a hunky-dory manner. Oh, there is divine grace. There is divine grace. Oh, I'm experiencing the Mother. But the moment you receive a little challenge or difficulty in life, you are like, why me? And you first is why me. Second is, why are you doing this, Mother? You blame her only. But if you really see, that's really the Mother that has pushing you towards progress. And my dear, you've come on earth not to live a hunky-dory life alone. You've come on earth for primarily one purpose, and that is called progress. And this is the mother that enables our progress the fastest, quickest, and swiftest. For she too is the mother, and her love is as intense as her wrath. And she has a deep and passionate kindness. She has a deep and passionate kindness. When she is allowed to intervene in her strength, then in one moment are broken like things without consistence, the obstacles that immobilize or the enemies that assail the seeker. This is such a beautiful part about this mother. In one moment, the chains of karma that perhaps you have been struggling with for lifetimes altogether, if you're receptive to the hand of nature which is behind the blows of life, you will notice some of the karma you've been carrying is not even from this lifetime. From multiple lifetimes, you've been repeating certain patterns in your relationship. And if you can just be open to the hand of the mother, which is behind every blow that we experience from nature, you will realize in a moment she can cause a progress that would have otherwise taken lifetimes for you to make that progress. So what a love would that be? Just breaking that big chain and that baggage that we've been carrying not through one but through several lifetimes altogether. If her anger is dreadful to the hostile, and the vehemence of her pressure painful to the weak and the timid, she is loved and worshipped by the great, the strong, and the noble. For they feel that her blows beat what is rebellious in their material into strength and perfect truth, hammer straight what is wry and perverse, and expel what is impure or defective. It's for this reason, if you look at India, much of the great warriors of India, much of the great kings of India always worshipped Mahakali. Because the strong and the great proactively invite Mahakali. It's like Sri Aurobindo has also said that, if you begin to receive a combination of Krishna Kali in your heart, you can be rest assured that something in you is wanting to go at an accelerated progress. And what a combination Krishna Kali is, because usually we see the woman as the fragile one and the man as the powerful, strong one. And here in yoga, if you begin to receive the man as Krishna, which is so full of love and that eternal delight, and Kali, which is so full of strength and fierceness, that is when you can be rest assured that your soul is wanting nothing but progress towards the divinity. So to welcome Mahakali proactively in your life, to worship Mahakali, I remember writing this one poetry. We write, poetry and we don't realize that, if you really are aspiring for something, Mother takes it very seriously and makes it happen. That's the power. Today it is known as the power of affirmation and manifestation. So I remember writing this very poetry in which it's about 7 years ago. I'm writing this thing where I'm saying, Mother, abolish my ego. Mother, I want to give fire to my own death. And I'm writing very intensely this poetry just in a couple of months. The work I am doing, that has come to a closure. The relationship I am in, that has come to a closure. The best friendship that I've had for, 15 years or more, that has come to a closure. Everything is coming to a closure and I am in tears. And, I am wondering, why is this happening? Why is this happening to me? But the good part of the story is once this happened, it created the space in my life that made me join Auroville. Had this not happened, I would not have been able to join Auroville. It's like everything that I needed to let go. Mother was like, now you're free. Now you just surrender and you give. It is beautiful. It is beautiful. The very fact that I'm able to live the life that I'm able to live today is because I aspired at that time. It is because I wanted to burn that ego. But yes, it requires one to be strong. But the kind of progress that you will experience as a result of it, goosebumps, absolute goosebumps. Okay, with that. But for her, what is done in a day might have taken centuries. And I absolutely feel, had I not aspired like that, I would have gone into those circles, if not for centuries, at least for a few more years. If I would have been like, Mama, you be nice and kind and sweetly make me progress. Then in that sweetly making me progress, I would have at least taken 5 to 10 years more. So what is done in a day might have taken centuries. Without her, Ananda might be wide and grave, or soft and sweet and beautiful, but would lose the flaming joy of its most absolute intensities. If there is no Mahakali, the Ananda, the delight, would either be like that of Maheshwari, who's wide and calm, or be like that of Lakshmi, who's sweet and soft and beautiful. But the Ananda would lose the flaming joy of its most absolute intensities. We enjoy intensity, as all human beings, we enjoy intensities. When you watch an Imtiaz Ali movie or any movie which has intensity, right? Even if it's a very tragic movie, any kind of intensity you would enjoy by the pure fact that this is something extremely intense. And actually, the heart of a Sufi, the heart of a Bhakta is an extremely intense heart, because that Bhakti eventually wants to absolutely give itself, burn itself at the feet of the divine and let nothing but the divine exist. It reminds me of a little story I was listening to yesterday. I think it is of Baba Farid. Maybe I'm not getting the name right, but I think it is of Baba Farid. And, he's aspiring. He's 80 years old, and his body is so frail that it cannot move. And this is a singer and a poet, right? And his body is so frail and so unwell that the crows have come to eat the body. And he says, "Oh, crows, eat my entire body, but let my eyes be, because my eyes still have an aspiration to meet my beloved, to see my beloved, to see the divine." And I found it absolutely so beautiful to even have like a thought of that nature. It's actually, that is the thought which has been embodied in one of the songs of this movie called Rockstar. And I was quite amazed to discover the story behind this song. So yes, one part of us loves this intensity of self-giving. None of us want to be mediocre. We want an intensity. The only reason why we resist pressure, it is because, one, we do not know how to take pressure. Our adhara is not ready. Or two, we are working so hard and giving ourselves towards a goal which we ourselves don't find it worthy giving ourselves to. So doing something that you don't love to do, that will only create stress. Giving yourself towards something that you don't consider in some way divine will only create stress. So with that, we come to the last line. To knowledge, she gives a conquering might. To knowledge, she gives a conquering might, because ultimate fulfillment of knowledge can also only take place when knowledge translates itself into action. That is why to knowledge, she gives the conquering might, the power to manifest. And she is the one who brings beauty and harmony, a high and mounting movement, so that beauty and harmony don't just remain silent, but also become a power of transformation and imparts to the slow and difficult labor after perfection an impetus that multiplies the power and shortens the long way. So to the Mahasaraswati, who's into perfecting things in their detail, she gives the power to multiply labor. So one is not just caught into slowly just going on and on perfecting things, but is able to multiply the perfection at work. Nothing can satisfy her that falls short of the supreme ecstasies, the highest heights, the noblest aims, the largest vistas. Therefore, with her is the victorious force of the divine, and it is by grace of her fire and passion and speed if the great achievement can be done now rather than hereafter. Nothing can satisfy her that falls short of the supreme ecstasies, the highest heights, the noblest aims, the largest vistas. Therefore, with her is the victorious force of the divine, and it is by grace of her fire and passion and speed if the great achievement can be done now rather than hereafter. It reminds me of Auroville. Mother said that Auroville already exists. It only needs to be downloaded, and it may take 1,000 years or 10 years, but it is meant to be. Now, the part in us that wants to make it happen at the earliest possible, while not compromising the highest possibility, the noblest aim, the perfection of the ideal, that part is really coming from the power of Mahakali that does not want to delay progress. But at the same time, it's not like I don't want to delay progress. I want to rush into action, even if it is imperfect. This is a part of the mother who wants absolute perfection, absolute ideal, and at the same time, speed. Thank you. Bye-bye. I hope you found the video to be useful. If you would like to continue your journey with us, if you would like to help us support you in your journey, click on the link below and join us for a 2.5-hour signature masterclass called the Awakening Karmayogi Workshop, where we run you through the fundamental stages of awakening to become a Karmayogi, to be peaceful inside and successful outside. We talk about Swabhava, our true nature, and Swadharma, our soul's purpose, which are the building blocks of a life affirming, not a life negating spirituality. So if you found this video to be useful, click on the link below and I shall see you at the workshop.